Hello and welcome back to another video on The Last of Us, and today we'll do my review on episode 2 of season 1, and this episode starts off in 2003 again with an Indonesian scientist discovering the cordyceps fungi, and it basically confirms what we all theorized, is that the flower is the way that everyone got infected. The fungus got into the flower and infected the world, and basically it's just there to be like, there is no cure, hammering home again that there's no way to cure the fungus. And that takes about 10 minutes of this episode. And to be honest, I am not a fan of it because it just takes away from the Last of Us story of Joel and Ellie. And we're just getting more of back in the past with characters we don't really care about. Like, I know some people really like the setting before the apocalypse, where we can see how the world reacted and how things went down. And I can understand that. But I am interested in Joel and Ellie, not the origin of the outbreak. So it would have been fine if it was shorter, but I feel like this 10-minute section just takes away from the actual story. But once we get into the story, it is absolutely fantastic. This story is focused on Joel, Tess, taking Ellie towards the Capitol building of Boston. And the journey there is just filled with so many iconic moments from the game, like the crossing over from one roof to the other, the Capitol building, the hotel, and the museum. All just looking like they're ripped straight out of the game, and it looks absolutely amazing how they care so much about the game that they're like, we are going to take parts from the game and just drop it right in the show, almost one for one. Also, have to mention, the little talk between our three characters while they're traveling is absolutely fantastic. It feels just like from the game. It is so good that they're nailing down these characters so well. I was a bit on the fence about Pedro Pascal in episode 1, but I do see him as Joel now in episode 2. Those three characters, they are all perfectly cast. Like, it took me a while to want Pedro Pascal, but this episode really sold me on him. I really loved the acting. Those actors just really embodied those characters, and I would have to say my favourite in the three characters is definitely Tess this episode. She really shined this episode. She was definitely the best character. I feel like Joel still isn't doing much. A lot of the scenes we're having Tess and Ellie talking to each other, and Joel is just silently walking behind them. He's basically there to be the muscle. Hopefully moving forwards, they will make Joel more of a centre character, but 2 episodes in, and Joel was more of a background character, it felt like. However, it makes sense. Joel was always the muscle to Tess, so with Tess around, she's naturally the leader. So I can understand it, but I am really looking forwards to seeing more of Joel. But the big thing about this episode is that we meet the Clickers, and damn, they are a perfect adaptation. I was really worried these were like a make it or break it thing. If they got a new noise for the Clickers, if they changed their looks. They did change the look of some of the more basic infect with them having tentacles come out of their mouth. But no, the Clickers are basically ripped straight out of the game, like sound and all, and they're absolutely perfect. The scenes with the Clickers and our characters are the most intense part of this episode, and it really had me on the seat. Just the noise of the Clickers gave me basic anxiety. It is just such a perfect scene, and it's so well choreographed and acted, and the Clickers feel like a real threat to our veteran characters like Joel and Tess, who survived 20 years. They get up to 2 Clickers and they're like, we are absolutely screwed. I absolutely loved the Clickers, and that entire set piece was definitely the best part of this episode. We did also get some more changes to the cordyceps from the game. I did notice that they are like apparently not going to do the spores part of the cordyceps, which I was quite sad about because I really like the idea that you can get infected just by breathing in air. And they even mention it, like Ellie going, oh, what about infected that can throw like spores at you? And Tess just jokes going, I hope not. They mention it, but you're like, nah bro, why don't we have that? But they did change it with something else, and they have it where the infected are all interconnected, and if you step on a vine or kill an infected, you've alerted every infected in the area. And I'm definitely up for this change. I understand why they removed the spores part. Maybe with this and that, maybe the infected would be too overpowered. You could die from breathing them or die for killing them. So I really like this because they're now a massive threat. You kill one, you have everyone on you. I do also have to mention about the aesthetics. This episode just looks absolutely beautiful. Every shot looks like it's just ripped straight out of the game. They really made this game with loving care to be like, okay, we want to make it look like The Last of Us. We want it to look like and feel like The Last of Us, and it does. Absolutely every shot is amazing, and because we get to see the city at daytime, it looks just gorgeous. This is definitely the prettiest show we have on TV at the moment, and it puts other shows to shame because this thing had like, what's it, like a $10 million budget per episode. That's absolutely mad. I do also have to mention how successfully they streamlined the story. Like, there's a lot to do. I was a bit worried at the end of the last episode, is that they only got to the point where they found out Ellie was infected, and you're like, okay, so they got like all the way to the Capitol building to do, and that's quite a lot of the game. And it just works so well. They had the big moments of the game, and they had a lot of time to develop our characters more, and that's when I warmed up to Joel, and that's why I really like Tess so massive. Like, congratulations on writing and pacing this episode so well. But before we go on, I do want to say spoiler alert, because in 3 seconds I want to talk about the ending. So 3, 2, 1, if you're still here, you've signed, we're talking about the ending. So this episode ends with Tess's death. We find out she gets bitten by a clicker, and we also find out Ellie gets bitten by the clicker. And I really like this change because we see 2 fresh bites. We see how Ellie's body reacted to it and Tess's. So that definitely helped this adaptation. I really liked it. But I really, really liked the acting, and it was hands down all around. It was a very faithful adaptation of the game version of Tess's death. And normally, especially in episode 1, when they did that, I felt a little off, like especially Pedro Pascal's Joel. He didn't feel like Joel. But I think because we got used to our characters, we're no longer comparing them. So when we see these scenes, it no longer feels wooden, and it no longer feels like a cheap copy of the game. It feels like The Last of Us. It just feels right. And I do have to say, I prefer Tess's show death over the game death. I just enjoyed the way Tess's death was more in the show. It was well acted. It was well done. Also, we did have more character development for Tess, and their relationship with Joel more or less confirmed. So it definitely just came across better. I really, really like this ending. I also don't mind the change from it being infected instead of soldiers that kill Tess, because in the game, soldiers come in and they kill Tess. I like the idea that the infected are, and it shows the deadliness of the infected. You kill an infected, but if the fungus get close to them, it alerts everyone else. So it makes it way more dangerous. The only issue I have with this change is the weird kiss scene between the infected. I think it was maybe a stalker. It looked a bit like a stalker because of the fungus growing out of his head. So we had the stalker, and then we had it kissing Tess and passing the fungus through her mouth. I thought that was just really weird. So that's the only issue I have with the ending, is that it just really disturbed me. It's such a small thing, so I'm not really gonna put it against this episode. Also, why did Joel and Ellie not pick up maybe any grenades? They just literally like, nah, we're out of here. But other than that, let's move on to my one sentence, that's one word overall review. And I have to say, hands down, this is a fantastic episode. And if I had to give it a number, this is not like what I did last episode with a 7 out of 10. This would have to be maybe a 9 out of 10. It is so perfectly done. This is how you properly do an adaptation of a video game. You look at the source material, you see what's good about it, maybe change a few things to adapt it for TV audiences more, but don't change too much to isolate the original fan base. Just change enough so that they know the story, but it has some changes that will keep them on their toes. This is an almost perfect adaptation so far. I'm a little worried going into later episodes, maybe they will change something a bit massive, but in its current state, it's adapting this so perfectly. I do recommend you go and watch this show right now. And that is my review, so make sure to like and subscribe to keep up to date with all Last of Us content. But this is it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you later.